More questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Jamais dans l'histoire.
Never in history has a budget ever forced Canadians to pay so much for so little. Every dollar that the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. He has broken his promises. He promised to spend less. He's spending $80 billion, $90 billion more net. That's $5,400 per family. He doubled the deficit of the Trudeau government, and he has added more debt than in any other year other than COVID years. Why is he doing this when Canadians cannot pay their bills? He's forcing them to pay even more. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada is in a solid budgetary position. It is the second lowest deficit in the G7. It has the lowest net debt in the G7 and a budget that invests in Canada because we believe in Canada here. This Prime Minister is becoming the most expensive Prime Minister in the history of our country. In fact, it is bankers who are profiting, and Canadians will have to pay $55 billion on the interest of the national debt, and that is more than we are spending on health transfers, and it is more than the government gets from the GST. Every cent that Canadians pay in sales tax is not going to doctors and nurses, it's going to bankers. Why did the Prime Minister send healthcare money to bankers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the debt burden right now is lower than it was when the government was conservative, and that is true. It's lower than when the Conservative government was in power. Second, we are investing in Canada, and we are protecting healthcare transfers and money for education and for social programs sent to provinces.
Never before have Canadians had to spend so much to get so little. This budget, with its record deficit outside of COVID, is a deficit twice as the size of the one Trudeau left behind, and $16 billion bigger than the Prime Minister promised. It has, in this spending, $5,400 of extra costs for every family in more expensive government. While Canadians are already unable to eat, heat, and house themselves, why is this Prime Minister's costly budget making them pay even more?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this budget has 75% of the measures are for our sovereignty, to protect our borders, to protect our communities, to protect our way of life. And the balance is for affordability, a middle-class tax cut that the member opposite missed because he was not here. Mr. Speaker, this budget invests in Canada at twice the rate as any budget during this millennium. We believe in Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It is twice as expensive as any other budget, and it makes generational debt. And speaking of sovereignty, what about food sovereignty, Mr. Speaker? The Prime Minister's budget increases taxes on food production, with the industrial carbon tax on farm equipment, fertilizer, storage bins, and food processing plants. Sylvain Charlebois, Canada's food professor, says that it is arguably the most damaging aspect of the Liberal carbon tax. It is a tax across the supply chain that undermines the competitiveness of our agri-food sector. Why is the Prime Minister threatening our food sovereignty and driving up our food prices?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in the spring, this government removed the divisive consumer carbon tax, and that has a consequence. That is a consequence for any business, any farm that emits less than 50 kilotons, which is every farm across this country. Mr. Speaker, The Canadian Climate Institute has done the analysis, and the impact of the industrial carbon tax on inflation is zero.
The honourable leader of the opposition.
Apparently, the Prime Minister is still under the misconception that Canadians don't use steel. You remember that interview when he told CTV, he asked the CTV interviewer, "You don't use steel, do you, Steve?" Well, of course, farmers use steel in order to produce their food, in order to store their grains. Processors use steel in the apparatuses of their conveyor belts. The tax on fertilizer and equipment drives up the cost of food, not according to Conservatives, but according to Sylvain Charlebois. So is the Prime Minister going to tell Canadians that an industrial carbon tax on Canadian farmers is not driving up the price of...
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the impact of the industrial carbon tax on food prices in Canada is approximately zero.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Still thinks we use zero steel, Mr. Speaker. But on another subject, unfortunately a much darker subject. Last week, the Supreme Court ruled that a 1-year prison sentence was too much for possession of child abuse and exploitation materials. That sentence was already far too low for the two dirtbags who had literally hundreds of impressions and videos of children being tortured. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing, invoke the notwithstanding clause in order to put the rights of children ahead of the rights of those who abuse them?
The right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure I join all members of this House in condemning the exploitation of children as the most reprehensible source of crime. Mr. Speaker, that is why this government will be bringing forth legislation to combat these crimes, to penalize those who are responsible. That works within our Constitution.
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, you are well known for your financial knowledge, and in theory, the Prime Minister is known for that too. But let's be serious. Let us not try to fool people. Let us ask the Prime Minister to ask why tax credits for oil companies, the organization of FIFA, or health transfers are assets for the government.
Le très honorable Premier ministre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, one of the most important aspects of the budget is the tax credits for investment into clean electricity. That represents $4 billion for Quebec for investments there. That is one of the main reasons to support this budget. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. I don't expect the Prime Minister to want to answer my question. A tax credit. You are paying money to someone who gets the benefit of that credit. It comes out of government coffers. You cannot say that it is an investment, the value of which you are keeping with on your asset sheet. Does the Prime Minister think that accountants are idiots and that Canadians are idiots as well? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I would like to underline that Hydro-Quebec will be one of the biggest beneficiaries of this budget, and the environment will be the other big beneficiary. When it comes to carbon capture, the truth is that right now, Quebec is using 350,000 barrels of oil a day. So carbon has to be captured for the production and transport of those barrels. The member for Belleuil-Chambly. It seems that there's embarrassment in the air, Mr. Speaker. So that's wonderful if money is going into good projects, and yes, this has been decided that it is good, but it is an expenditure. It's really, the Prime Minister must recognize that his budget is an austerity budget so that he can fund oil companies at Quebec's expense. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this budget is an investment budget. It's a budget for generational investment. The pace of investment is twice as quick, and this budget is going to stimulate $1 trillion worth of investment by the end of the decade. It's a growth budget for Quebec, for Canada.
In addition to cooking the books, the Prime Minister also rigged his GST rebate on housing to make sure that 95% of home buyers would not qualify for any break at all. Zero, zip, zilch. And the Prime Minister, meanwhile, puts a new rising tax on steel, aluminum, glass, cement, concrete, all the things that go into making a home. In other words, the industrial carbon tax is a housing tax. With Liberals already having doubled housing costs, will the Prime Minister axe the industrial carbon tax so Canadians can afford a home?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Leader persists and doubles down on these fake, imaginary taxes that exist only in his head and on the talking points that he hands out. What I will tell you is this is a budget where conservative-minded voters, people who think of voting conservative in elections, you know what they like about it? They like the hope. They like the ambition. They like the economic growth. They like bringing this country together from coast to coast to coast to invest in our potential, to invest in our young people, and to grow this country to be the best in the G7, Mr. Speaker. That's what they like.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he says it's imaginary, but it's in his budget. Does that mean the budget is a fictional document? Here it is on page 106, strengthening the industrial.
The honourable member may continue now that the prop has been put away.
Mr. Speaker, they say their budget is a prop and its contents are imaginary. We're in real trouble. Homes take steel, they take aluminum, they take concrete and cement and glass. The industrial carbon tax drives all those things up. With our youth unable to afford homes, why don't they get rid of this tax so that we can bring down the cost of housing?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, you know what this budget does? It builds communities. It builds opportunities for young people in our communities. It ties this country together in a common refrain of hope and optimism and investing in ourselves. We're going to be investing in new homes. We're going to be investing in housing for young people. We're going to build it with that Canadian steel. We're going to build it with that Canadian lumber. We're going to build it with that best thing that we have, that Canadian ingenuity that exists in the youngest and the oldest, the skilled tradespeople of this country. We are going to build Canada. Conservatives like that, liberals like that. Let's build the country.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
After the Prime Minister's depressing speech demanding young people make more sacrifices, I think the Liberal House Leader asked ChatGPT to write him up a little poem about how he could inject hope into his message. It didn't work, Mr. Speaker. Young people need houses for them to have hope. Houses are needed to raise families. Houses are needed to build equity and collateral and credit history. But the Prime Minister insists on applying an escalating industrial carbon tax that will raise the cost of everything that goes into making a home. So with the Liberals doubling housing costs already, why won't they get rid of this tax?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know housing is top of mind for young Canadians, and we have heard them loud and clear. Budget 2025 delivers on affordable housing for young Canadians. It focuses on affordable housing and co-ops. It delivers on GST for first-time homebuyers, up to 47,000 homes that will see a big reduction in GST. Building all of these homes creates jobs for young people in the trades, great jobs for young Canadians. This budget delivers affordability for young Canadians.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government has doubled lineups at food banks to well over 2 million people. And right now, food prices are rising 40% faster in Canada than they are in the United States, which means it can't be some global or foreign factor on which we blame those rising costs. But Sylvain Charlebois, Canada's leading food price expert, says the industrial carbon tax, which is not only still in place but is rising quickly in this costly budget, is partly to blame. So single mothers, small businesses, and seniors can feed themselves while they get rid of this terrible tax on food.
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
As a former single mother myself, I can tell you the kinds of things that single mothers, in fact families, are looking for is affordability. That's in this budget. Whether it's a middle-class tax cut for 22 million Canadians, whether it's protecting $10 a day childcare, by the way, a game changer for women, especially single mothers, but whether it's making the school food program permanent, whether it's investing in building trades, the kinds of infrastructure investments that will lead to good-paying jobs. We're here for young people, Canadians. Young Canadians.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, since they started promising that program, the number of children lined up at food banks has doubled to 700,000. And food prices are actually rising 40% faster in Canada than they are in the United States of America. The questions I've been asking are to the Prime Minister. Apparently he doesn't have time to answer questions about homes and food when Canadians cannot afford to feed and lodge themselves. So once again, will the Prime Minister get rid of his regressive industrial carbon tax on Canadian foods so that single mums and seniors can afford to eat?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians don't have time for the kind of antics that the Conservative Party performs every single day. What Canadians want is investment in their families, investment in their children, investment in the kinds of infrastructure in small communities all across this country, including in my riding, that are going to make life affordable, that are going to build up the kind of infrastructure that allows for us to get ahead. And Mr. Speaker, lots of Conservatives feel that way in my riding. They told me so, and they've donated.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, the last Liberal budget had a fiscal anchor of deficits of less than 1% of GDP. This budget doubles those deficits, averaging 2% of GDP. The last Liberal budget had a fiscal anchor of declining debt to GDP. This budget increases debt to GDP. Will the government admit that its fiscal anchor is weaker than the previous Trudeau governments?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Speaker, I know they're having a bad week over there, but yesterday we tabled an historic budget to build our economy for Canadians, by Canadians, so we will never be reliant on one country again. We will spend less on wasteful spending so we can invest in our country and build our country, our economy, into the strongest economy in the G7. Mr. Speaker, from Canadians from coast to coast to coast, support our budget. It's time for us to come together in this House, like Canada. Time for the party opposite to support our budget.
The honourable member for Wellington, Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, last July, bond rating agency Fitch warned that a material rise in the debt to GDP and a material rise in our deficits could lead to a credit downgrade. This budget doubles deficits and leads to ever-increasing debt to GDP. Will the government acknowledge that it is putting this country's credit rating at risk, not only to mention that it's saddling younger Canadians with a mountain of national debt?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of young Canadians are looking at this budget for generational opportunities. We are unlocking new markets for them. Budget 2025, we're getting young Canadians, young entrepreneurs ready to get export ready through our SMA readiness program. Secondly, once they're export ready, we will launch the Can Export program to support them attend trade shows globally to showcase their goods. And once they have orders ready to go out, EDC will step in to support them to get into new markets around the world. This is how we're helping young Canadians and young entrepreneurs access new markets and create jobs here at home. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, there's been a lot of talk about a generational deficit of $78 billion in the budget, and it's true. What are the main points of this budget? The defense is the main priority, and the end to the struggle against climate change is done. There's even more credits for oil companies. These are all choices that Stephen Harper would have made because they are conservative choices. It's so conservative, in fact, that a conservative member became liberal. And so we have a liberal deficit with conservative priorities, and through it all, why is there nothing for the priorities of Quebecers? The honourable member of Industry, the Minister of Industry. I know my colleague very well, and I know his writing very well, and there's something that is clear, and that is in his writing, when you talk about expenditures on defense, that has an impact in Mirabel, that has an impact at CAE, and for Airbus, for Pedro Dextron as well, it's going to have an impact on thousands of jobs in Mirabel. And my colleague right now is saying that this budget is not delivering anything for Quebec and for Mirabel. I think maybe he's disconnected from reality. The honourable member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, a deficit of $78 billion will have impact on the coming generations in my writing, but there's worse than that. The Liberals are creating this deficit, and they're announcing cuts to health transfers, and they're not investing anything for seniors. And they're refusing a preferential rate for the first-time home buyers, and they're replacing the only housing building program that works in Quebec by Build Homes Canada, which is going to slow everything down, Mr. Speaker. How is it possible to create a deficit of $78 billion and by giving up on all of Quebecers' needs? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, we were asked to invest more to build hospitals. We said, what did we say? Yes, excellent idea. We'll put it in the budget. And you can read, he could read the pages in the budget and you'd see it there in black and white. Quebecers said, we want you to protect our language and culture. We want you to invest in that because it's important to us. The Minister of Finance and the Minister of Culture, Quebec and Canadian culture, promised to invest more than ever in art and cultures. So when did you vote for this member?
Mr. Speaker, in 2015, 6 cents of every dollar was used to pay interest on the national debt. Yesterday's budget confirms that that number will more than double to 13 cents of every dollar. Wow. That's almost $76 billion going to bankers and bondholders to pay interest on the national debt. That's even more than the government will receive from taxing and GST. This, when the finance minister says he's making generational investments, is he just saddling the next generation with his unaffordable budget?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite simply is overlooking that Canada has a AAA credit rating, the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7, has been world acclaimed in terms of a home for direct foreign investment, top of the G20 there, Mr. Speaker. The difference between that side of the House and this side of the House is that we believe in Canada. We believe in Canadians. We're diversifying supply chains, and we're investing in our population so that we become the strongest economy in the G7. We ask them to join us.
The honourable member for Simcoe North.
Speaker, the difference is that every Liberal finance minister seems to keep breaking their fiscal promises. They said the deficits would be low and temporary. They were long and very large. They said the deficit would be capped. They said the debt to GDP ratio would continue going down. The ratio went up and the deficits blew through the cap. Now we have a new finance minister with a new, weaker fiscal anchor. Will the finance minister confirm that this anchor is weaker, and how long before he breaks his promise too?
How long? The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we are a nation of builders. We're building it for young people. We have the best net to GDP ratio in the G7. We are building affordable homes. We're investing in trades and hospitals. We're creating 100,000 new summer jobs. We are investing in entrepreneurs. Why, Mr. Speaker? This is a budget of resilience. This is a budget of strength. This is a budget of hope. Why don't the Conservatives join us and build Canada strong?
The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just delivered one of the most expensive budgets in Canadian history. He promised fiscal responsibility during the last election, but Canadians got a staggering $80 billion deficit instead. That's $80 billion in new debt that will drive up the cost of food, housing, and everything that Canadians buy. After hearing all this talk about change, Canadians are left wondering one thing: how is this Prime Minister's out-of-control spending any different than Justin Trudeau's?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Canadians across this country empowered us in the last election, and now we're empowering them in Budget 2025. A budget that will make generational investments to create the strongest economy in the G7. That's exactly what we're doing. We're building major infrastructure, homes, and industries. We're protecting our communities, borders, and way of life, and we're empowering Canadians with better careers, strong public services, and more affordable life. We know a strong country can be even stronger, but it takes vision and leadership. It's too bad the Conservatives have neither.
The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister isn't investing. He's spending on the backs of future generations. In fact, because of his reckless spending spree, Canadians will be paying over $55 billion a year in interest alone to service the debt. That's more money spent on interest payments than on health care transfers to help patients. Does the Prime Minister realize that his spending is lining the pockets of his banker and bondholder friends instead of funding our doctors and nurses?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Prime Minister doesn't only have a vision for what this country is now, but what it is going to be. That's why he has assigned multiple ministries to work on transforming healthcare in those critical spaces in the north, spaces that always lacked investment on this side of the House, spaces that never seen the light of day with having support on this side of the House. We're inviting them to finally come into those spaces, support Indigenous people with those critical services. It is something that we know all voters are asking for.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable-Lot-Binière. A costly budget that will make life even more costly for Canadian families. With the budget he tabled yesterday, the Prime Minister will go down in history as the biggest spender in Canadian history. Almost $80 billion in deficits. He promised to spend less, but he's spending $90 billion more. That's $5,400 per family, Mr. Speaker. And you know what? All that money comes straight out of Canadians' pockets. Why has the Prime Minister chosen to drive up the cost of food even further with the most inflationary budget in our history? The Honourable Minister. Canada has a AAA credit rating. and the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7. That's our fiscal position. But what's in the budget? We're doubling housing, we're investing in infrastructure, we're raising the salaries of our CAF members higher. It's unprecedented. We've cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. That's what's in the budget, Mr. Speaker, and I'm proud of it.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Speaker, my riding of Halifax is home to a thriving defence sector with more than 10,000 Canadian Armed Forces members. I know that many of my constituents, including those in uniform, watched yesterday as the Minister of Finance tabled Budget 2025. Can the Minister of National Defence speak to the new defence investments Canada is making?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Speaker, through Budget 2025, we're investing over $81 billion over the next 5 years to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in our Canadian Armed Forces. This is a generational investment in defence infrastructure, in capabilities, in training, and of course, in our incredible personnel. From Halifax to Latvia, Mr. Speaker, when the brave men and women of the CAF answer the call to serve, they know we've got their backs, and they know it's time to build Canada strong.
The honourable member for Newtecumseh-Gwillimbury.
Costly budget of broken promises is a disastrous attempt to put out the fire they started. Not only is the Prime Minister fueling inflation with the largest regular budget deficit in Canadian history, he's also hiking up the industrial carbon tax, driving up food prices. Families are already struggling to afford food, housing, and everything else. So why does this Prime Minister want to raise the industrial carbon tax and make life even harder for Canadians?
Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, we're creating opportunities for Canadians. Budget 2025 is about building Canada, creating opportunities for young people. We're building St. John's strong, Etobicoke strong, Vancouver strong, Halifax strong, Fredericton strong, Winnipeg strong, Bradford strong, Mr. Speaker, city by city, community by community, for our young people, for Canadians. Through Budget 2025, we're building roads, bridges, hospitals, water systems, community centres, homes that Canadians need, major projects in the national interest, Mr. Speaker. We're doing it with Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, and Canadian union workers.
The honourable member for Newtecumseh-Gwillimbury.
Is in this mess because of 10 years of Liberal deficits and taxes. Now this costly budget will make things worse by adding $10 million to our debt every hour. It's like cranking up the furnace and leaving the windows open, Mr. Speaker. Canada is the only G7 country where food inflation has gone up 4 months in a row. And by increasing the industrial carbon tax and driving up inflation, this budget will only raise prices higher. Why is this Prime Minister so intent on making life unaffordable for Canadian families?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Speaker, I ask the Conservatives to join the rest of the country and love our country. I love Canada, Mr. Speaker. They always seem to call Canada down. On this side of the Assembly, we are marketing Canada, something you guys should do. On this side of the aisle, we are defending Canada, Mr. Speaker, something that you guys should do as well. At the end of the day, we're building, you're tearing down Canada. Shame on you. Let's get on the same page. Canadians deserve that, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister's costly budget is full of broken promises and is the most expensive in Canadian history. It has the largest deficit in history outside of COVID. It will drive up the cost of food, housing, and everything else that Canadians buy. Liberals had a chance to lower food costs for Canadians, but they chose to make food more expensive by increasing the industrial carbon tax, driving the cost of fertilizer and farm equipment. Why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive for Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
They will be voting
against food in schools for children, voting against an income tax cut for Canadians, voting against $75 million in apprenticeship training, voting against a refundable tax credit for personal support workers, voting against $45 million in funding to address violence against women, and voting against crucial supports for seniors like old age security. Canadians want to know, who are these Conservatives fighting for? Because it certainly isn't them.
The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
We're going to be voting against adding an additional $300 billion in debt for our future generations. Once said the food wholesale prices have increased in Canada versus the US, and that the one factor driving this is the industrial carbon tax. He also said that he's deeply concerned and expects that food inflation will continue to be a problem moving forward. Experts are warning that food prices will continue skyrocketing. So I ask again, Mr. Speaker, why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive for all Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our budget delivers historic investments to build Canada strong. This means strong families and strong communities from coast to coast to coast. That includes supports for youth in building skills to help them find and access high-paying careers. We are investing in training and supports for 20,000 youth facing employment barriers. We are investing in an additional 24,000 Canada Summer Jobs opportunities this coming year, co-ops, internships, apprenticeship opportunities for over 55,000 post-secondary students. Canada's new government has a plan to invest in youth. I encourage members opposite to support this plan and to vote for the budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyendinaga.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday Canadians got a taste of one of the greatest sins a government can commit: overpromise and under-deliver.
That's right.
The Prime Minister promised a generational and transformational budget crafted by the so-called master of monetary policy. Instead of reducing the deficit and showing fiscal discipline, he produced one of the costliest budget deficits in our nation's history. Rather than providing relief to Canadians by reducing the industrial carbon tax, he chose to increase it. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister raising the industrial carbon tax and making food even more expensive for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This budget is about focusing on youth. Our government is investing in youth, particularly Indigenous youth. Investments like in Inuit Nunagat University. It'll be a landmark step forward for education and reconciliation in Canada. It'll strengthen local economies, build capacity in the north, and support Inuit-led research. We hope the members opposite will support this initiative and vote for the budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyendinaga.
Dr. Sylvain Charlebois, food professor, has quoted, "That's been our concern from day one. The gap between wholesale prices in Canada versus the U.S. food wholesale prices have actually increased, and we believe that one factor driving this is the carbon tax. It doesn't take a central banker to figure out that eliminating the industrial carbon tax will help lower food prices. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister choosing to raise the industrial carbon tax when so many Canadians can barely afford groceries?"
Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Climate Institute most recent research shows industrial carbon pricing have essentially no cost on groceries. In the face of uncertainty, Canadians are going to build the future we want to build for ourselves. As we work for build the strongest economy in the G7, Mr. Speaker, our new government is helping our agriculture, fish, and seafood sectors adapt and respond to the economic challenges. This includes a new trade diversification strategy and $75 million of agri-marketing. I suggest they dig out their red and white sweaters and get them on and get on the bus.
The honourable member for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, this budget proves one thing: the Liberals don't understand how real Canadians live. Every dollar this government spends comes straight out of Canadians' pockets, and under this Prime Minister, everything costs more. After years of inflation and higher taxes, They've chosen to raise the industrial carbon tax. That means higher prices at the checkout line. Why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive?
Good question. The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, when we invest in unions in Windsor, we all win. Mr. Speaker, and we are empowering unions. We're empowering unions in Windsor. We're empowering unions across the country to train our young people. Because in Budget 2025, we invested that we're meeting our campaign commitment to double the Union Training Innovation Program. $75 million to help young people train to build Canada with Canadian lumber, Canadian steel, and Canadian unionized workers, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have tabled the most expensive budget with the biggest deficit in the country's history outside of the pandemic. This cost of this Liberal budget will drive up the price of food, and it's an irresponsible attack on our food security. Meanwhile, over 2 million Canadians are using food banks, and that will skyrocket with a deficit of nearly 80 billion. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister stop waging war on farmers and finally come up with a real plan to lower food prices? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I have to admit I'm a bit surprised by the question from the member from the Conservative Party, because when she was a member of the Liberal Party in Quebec City, she voted in favor of putting a price on carbon. And so she'll be very relieved to learn that the industrial carbon price doesn't apply in Quebec because Quebec has its own system. So it's just hypocrisy coming from the other side of the House. The honourable member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. While Canadians tighten their belts, this government keeps on spending recklessly. They've just added $90 billion in spending, or $5,400 per household. That's less money. This is going to affect people in Charlevoix. According to Sylvain Charlebois, the gap between wholesale food prices in Canada and the U.S. has grown, and the carbon tax is a major factor. Canada is the only G7 country to have had 4 consecutive months of rising food inflation. Why is the Prime Minister raising the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive for everyone? The Honourable Minister. I'll repeat what the Prime Minister said. So that about the impact of the industrial carbon tax on food prices. It's virtually zero. And my colleague talked about Conservative hypocrisy when it comes to food security. This is just another one of their inconsistencies. When she was in Quebec City, they did put a price on carbon, and it didn't stop there. Every day they vote against our initiatives to help families, whether it's food school programs, the child tax benefit, and so we will do without any lessons from the other side. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Canadians rely on strong and reliable infrastructure every day, from safe roads and bridges to clean drinking water and modern public facilities. They expect the government to build, protect, and strengthen communities through historic investments. Can the Minister inform the House of the generational infrastructure investment planned in Budget 2025? The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for that question. Canadians need strong, resilient communities supported by reliable infrastructure. Budget 2025 launches the Building Strong Communities Fund, a historic $51 billion investment to deliver modern infrastructure, enable new housing development, and strengthen communities across the country. Together with our partners, we will deliver the infrastructure Canadians rely on every day.
The Supreme Court has ruled that a mere 1-year mandatory prison sentence for the heinous crime of possessing child sexual abuse and exploitation material is cruel and unusual punishment. The criminals in this case possess materials depicting evil acts against children as young as 3 years old. Conservatives believe it is outrageous that these types of child predators could walk free with less than a year in prison. This court decision must be overturned using the notwithstanding clause, but the Liberals have refused to act. Why are they more concerned with protecting the rights of these vile predators than the rights of these innocent victims?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, let me be unequivocal. Child abusers are heinous criminals and should be treated as such by Canada's criminal laws. We will be moving forward with legislative solutions that will give clear directions to the courts to ensure that serious crimes are met with serious penalties. If the Conservatives want not only to ask questions in the House but actually achieve progress on this file, they can stop the obstruction on the Strong Borders Act, which is meant to give powers to law enforcement to actually stop child abuse that we know is happening. It's one thing to talk in the House, it's another thing to cast a vote in a way that will make a difference. I invite them to join the cause.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
Criminals who possess child sexual abuse and exploitation material deserve lengthy prison sentences. They cause unimaginable suffering and harm to innocent children. These precious kids will carry the scars of what was done to them for the rest of their lives. Conservatives and Canadians are calling on the government to invoke the notwithstanding clause and overturn this appalling Supreme Court ruling immediately. The Liberals refuse to do so. Why are the Liberals more concerned with protecting the rights of guilty pedophiles than standing up for the rights of innocent children?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, we're going to be bringing forth legislation that is going to address this particular issue. But I would like to ask why the Conservatives have been against every measure that we have put forward to protect our children, Mr. Speaker. We brought an online harms legislation. They voted against it. We brought lawful access tools for law enforcement. They are against it. Mr. Speaker, why are they protecting child abusers?
The honourable member for Lethbridge.
Two men pleaded guilty to having hundreds of images of innocent children. They were sexually abused, they were exploited, they were tortured. The Supreme Court made a decision that a 1-year jail sentence was too harsh. Conservatives vehemently disagree with this decision. The Liberals have an opportunity to use the notwithstanding clause and take a stand for innocent children. Why is this government concerned with protecting the rights of pedophiles instead of standing up for those children?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, I have been speaking to lots of families that have been victims of crime.
That's right.
And Mr. Speaker, many have been asking for online harms legislation. We brought legislation like that in this House. And that member, Mr. Speaker, was active in voting against it and made sure that that didn't pass in this House. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, law enforcement is also asking for tools to catch predators. But the Conservatives, guess what, are against it, Mr. Speaker. So why are they so concerned about the privacy rights of criminals instead of protecting our children?
Okay, colleagues, order. The honourable member for Peterborough.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected us to build, protect, and empower. In the North, that means reliable partnerships first and results people can trust. We have listened at kitchen tables across the North, and Budget 2025 reflects their voices. Could the minister share how this budget delivers with Indigenous?
Sorry, but a member is asking a question, and there are multiple other exchanges happening across the floor. I don't know. I couldn't identify the voices, but there were many voices. It's okay. It's okay. I understand. Okay.
It was their side that interrupted.
It was both ends. Okay, we're going to start from the top. The honourable member for Peterborough.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected us to build, protect, and empower. In the North, that means reliable partnerships and results people can trust. We have listened to kitchen tables across the North, and Budget 2025 reflects their voices. Could the minister share how this budget delivers with Indigenous partners so communities see results where they live, and how this approach makes the North a driver of Canada's prosperity and a pillar of our sovereignty?
The Honourable Minister for Northern and Arctic Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Northerners asked for transformative change, and our new government answered with generational plans to build, protect, and empower. This means skills, homes, and hope for Northern youth. Our budget delivers year-round routes and ports across the Arctic Corridor and the Churchill Gateway to keep Canada strong and free.
Hear, hear.
Through Major Projects Office, projects will move faster with Indigenous partnership. So this means building with the North for the North.
Hear, 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 hear.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf, Jacques Cartier. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberals tabled a budget with a deficit of nearly $80 billion. Did you hear that right? Nearly $80 billion. That's huge. And the impact will be catastrophic. It's just the same old, and what's more, the Liberals had the chance to reduce the cost of food by scrapping the industrial carbon tax. But what did they do instead? They increased it. Nearly $80 billion taken out of Canadian pockets, and nothing to counter food inflation. Can this Prime Minister stop breaking his promises and finally control his inflationary spending? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My mother knows the difference between an investment and an expense. My kids get the difference. And this budget is an investment in our Canadian youth, in our own resources, so that we can get through this crisis. Canadians elected us to do that, and we will do it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A lot of Canadians don't seem to know that between the day a budget is tabled and when it's voted on, the government can make changes. I desperately hope and that the answer will be yes to this question. Is the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance prepared to be flexible, work in a spirit for the national interest, and be prepared to make changes in this budget before it comes to a vote?
Good question.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, of course we are always listening to Canadians. What I would stress to the honourable member is that this is a budget that invests historically in climate competitiveness in this country, in getting Canada to net zero by 2050, and making sure that Canada remains a leader in the worldwide fight against climate change. I would invite her to compare us to any country around the world, especially our neighbours to the south, put this in perspective and understand, and as I know she will, that this is an historic effort on an historic issue, and it's an historic budget, Mr. Speaker.
Et cela met fin à la période des questions.
And that puts an end to question period.